Hello, everybody, and welcome back to part 4 of my 5-part series covering Kings of Middle-earth. You can check out the other videos. In this video, we're going to be looking at cards. So, there are many new cards in the deck, and a few altered ones. So starting with the Free People side of things, you have 5 cards that have been altered. These are all base game cards you should be familiar with. They have been changed, however, to have a new component to them, which is that they can remove the corrupted ruler from play. So Dine can remove corrupted Dine from play, Thranduil can remove corrupted Thranduil. Often this is going to be your best option for removing a ruler when they are corrupted. However, there is a significant downside to this. When this ruler is corrupted, you have to remove them rather than mustering. So a card like Dine Ironfoot's Guard, which is normally very important for reinforcing Erebor, now all it does is get rid of corrupted Dine. So that is another reason Shadow wants to corrupt these monarchs. House of the Stewards is better because it gives you the option. You now have the option of either removing a Hidden Corruption tile from Denethor or getting a Gondor Elite. I don't know. If you have Boromir in the region, I don't know why you wouldn't just awaken Denethor, but it's there. But yeah, these are the new cards. The other thing of note is that all of them draw a strategy card. So even something like Dine Ironfoot and Riders of Theoden gives you extra cycling, which is nice. Overall, these cards are a lot weaker because the corrupted rulers can block them. Wisdom of Elrond is also different. It has the same effect, or you can remove a corruption tile from a non-corrupted sovereign. I don't think you would ever want to do this. I think you would prefer to just activate the nation, which is very important in Kings, but it is optional to you. So those are the 6 altered cards, overall pretty similar. We're going to get into new cards. There's 3 new character cards and 2 new strategy cards. So starting with the strategy cards, they are both recruiting cards and they're both quite good. So Ever at Your Service allows you to recruit 1 regular elite in a region with a non-corrupted sovereign. Then, if that sovereign has 1 or more hidden corruption tiles on him, randomly discard 1 of them. So, if you randomly discard 1 of them is nice, I have used that to effect, but the real benefit of this is that you can muster even under siege. So it's yet another card that lets you muster under siege. This can be very important for Minas Tirith, it can be important for Woodland Realm, it can be important for Erebor, even Helm's Deep sometimes. Really great card to have. And the Men of Little Villages is a funny little card. It lets you recruit 1 regular or leader in each of 4 different Free People's nations. So they all have to be different, right? So you can't just recruit 4 Gondorians, but you could do 1 Gondorian, 1 Rohan guy, 1 North regular, and 1 Dwarf leader, for example. This really lets you recruit all over the map and can be very effective at stymieing Shadow. It does have to be in a settlement, so you can't do it in, for example, Osgiliath. But you can do it in any stronghold. I do not believe you can do it under siege. These are both attached to the same combat card, which is There is Hope for Victory, which allows you to awaken a sovereign if he's fighting in a combat. If you ever manage to play this combat card to awaken a sovereign, awesome. I want to see it happen. Normally, that does not happen. It does give +1 to leader reroll, so, you know, it's worth something, but probably you'd rather just use these cards to muster. Next, we're going to go over to the character cards. Aid in Time of Need is a really transformational card. It lets you move any or all companions who are not in the Fellowship, just like Fear Fire Foes or Book of Mizarble, but then also it allows you to awaken any non-corrupted sovereign in the same region as a companion. So this can be used a variety of different ways. You can, send out, Boromir out to Theoden and awaken him. Or you can use other sovereigns to awaken sovereigns. These sovereigns count as companions when they're awakened. So a very common thing that can happen is Thranduil gets awakened and then goes over and wakes up Dine. And yeah, the flexibility of that is so great. It's also another card that lets you move companions, so all the more reason to have companions on the map. The combat card for this is the King's Banner. The King's Banner is a really good combat card. All you need is Aragorn or an Awakened Sovereign. I like that you can do it with Aragorn. And before rolling the dice for your leader reroll, forfeit Aragorn or the Sovereign's leadership to cancel the leader reroll of the Shadow player. Often, you will be forfeiting 1 point of leadership to basically give yourself a better version of Gandalf the White Shining. So it is really quite strong. Especially if you see like a character card that might give them better dice on their reroll, then this is really effective. The other card with the King's Banner on it is Knowledge of the Seeing Stones. This is a really fun card. I didn't like it at first, but the more I've played it, the more it's grown on me. You choose one of the Shadow event decks and draw the top 3 cards. Choose one to discard and one to reshuffle into that deck. Then place the third one back on top. Then you get a draw from one of your decks. So, there's 2 sides to this. In Kings, especially if you have more expansions, the deck gets pretty massive, so it's possible you just don't get anything useful. However, this is especially good in corruption games when you are tracking cards, and you might have the opportunity to remove a card like Cruel Weather, or a Red Tile, or Morgul Wound. That could otherwise be really devastating to you, and now just gets yeeted out of the deck. Red Tiles, I think, in particular, I've noticed, tend to go with this, because generally speaking with a red tile, if you're in Mordor, Shadow's just going to play that immediately, so you know that they aren't just holding it in their hand, unlike something like Isildur's Bane. And again, it has the King's Banner, so if all else fails, it can be used as, like, I think the King's Banner is about as good as a Daylight, so even if you don't use the top effect, this is a good combat card. Finally, we have It Is Not So Dark here. This is a character card, and it's interesting that it's a character card because it's a character card that lets you advance a nation to war. You advance one free people's nation on the political track, then look at the corruption tiles on a non-corrupted sovereign, choose one of them, and return it to the hunt pool. When they are talking about the corruption tiles, you get to see them, so if they are hidden, if you're playing with the hidden version of corruption tiles, then you can choose which one, and you also get that information. So it's quite nice. I mean, removing corruption isn't that big a deal, because often you're just looking to awaken your sovereigns. But it is a very nice effect when the main reason you're playing this is as a muster. Getting a surprise muster with a Palantir can be quite useful. The combat effect of this is like a God of Old. You play it if an awakened sovereign is in the battle, and you roll an additional attack using a number of dice equal to the sovereign's leadership. If we look at the sovereigns, all of them have 1 leadership. Some of them are companion level 2, but they all have 1 leadership, except for Theoden, who has 3 in the first round of combat. So, you can imagine a wonderful scenario where you get to play this as Theoden, and deal 2 or 3 hits. That would be amazing. In practice, it is pretty easy for Shadow to cancel with a Foul Stench or something like that, which they might play anyway against a character card if you're attacking. So, just be careful of that if you're attacking a stronghold with this. But it is really good. At a bare minimum, I would view it as a sudden strike with 2 leadership, because that is expected to get about 2/3 of a hit. This is 2. And Sudden Strike with 2 leadership is a pretty decent combat card. So, I think this is worth playing as a combat card. That is all the new Free People cards. As you can see, the deck gets a little bigger. It's a little bit more bloated when you're looking for corruption healing cards. But these are all very solid. Overall, the deck got improved. Next, we're going to look at Shadow cards. Shadow also got 5 of their cards changed, but in much more significant ways than the Free People deck. So we'll start with Stormcrow. Stormcrow is an interesting one. It has all of the same effects. First of all, you move a Free People nation 1 step back on the political track. Then, if the sovereign of that nation is not awakened, you get to add a corruption tile to him, and the Free People player must eliminate 1 army unit of that nation. So, one small change, you can't eliminate an elite. You could eliminate an elite in the base game. So that is just nice. It gives Free People less options. And then the corruption tile can be really significant because you can kind of double dip, right? If if it looks like, I'm about to attack a Gondor, I don't want them to awaken Denethor, well, you can do one corruption attack normally, and then play this card to do a corruption attempt again. And potentially get Denethor in that way. So this got a nice little buff. It's pretty useful. And, there's going to be more companions on the board, so more opportunity to play it in general. Threats and Promises also got a buff, although it's a little hard to say if it's worth using still. While this card is in play, the Free People player cannot advance a passive nation on the political track, nor awaken a sovereign using a muster die result, which is great. That's actually a really great effect, but you must discard this card from the table. If a Free People nation advances on the political track, do an attack or do a companion's special ability, that's not new. But then the first part, if a sovereign becomes corrupted, is pretty significant. So you can't really use this all game. It's going to block them from awakening a sovereign for like a turn or two. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe if they are about to awaken a sovereign, you play this, and then you do a bunch of military stuff, like setup, preventing them from getting their ruler die early. That could be useful. But overall, this is not anything super special. King is Revealed got better as well, so you can play it with either Aragorn or Denethor. And in most games, you're going to see one of them. So you get the normal recruitment, and then you get to add one regular unit or Nazgul for each awakened sovereign in play. So this can start to add up fast. Normally you don't need more than 5 anyway. But extra Nazgul is nice too. More conditions for playing it. We'll also talk about Denethor's Folly real quick. Because you can play it when he's not awakened, and it prevents him from being awakened, as well as the normal effects of blocking combat cards. So that's really good. It's a really good way to guarantee you're taking Minas Tirith. And you can play it when Minas Tirith is not under siege. So you could, let's say you got your armies lined up in North and South Ithilien, you play this card, then you attack and activate Gondor. Now, it can be removed with any action die result if Gandalf, Aragorn, or Boromir are in the region with Denethor. This is a great change in my opinion. It means that Boromir can tell his dad to get over himself. So, yeah, it's very good. Now, Free People could also just use a character die to get rid of a corrupted Denethor, and that would get rid of this card. So it's almost kind of an awkward situation where you don't really want to corrupt Denethor sometimes. You just want to leave this card in play. I don't know. It's kind of funny, but it is better in this version. And then finally we have Return to Valinor. It's still a Deadly Strife. I still play it as a Deadly Strife most of the time. But Return to Valinor did get a buff, a much needed buff. And how it works now is that for each region, with an unconquered elven stronghold, which is not under siege, that part is unchanged. Roll a number of dice equal to the number of elven army units in that region, and score 1 hit against that army for each result of 6. Completely the same so far, but if 2 or more corrupted Free People sovereigns are in play, score hits on each result of 5+ instead, and the play condition allows you to play it if at least 1 corrupted sovereign is in play. So now how you can play this is corrupt 2 sovereigns. Maybe they have a mustering card or something. They played like Frandel's Archers. And then you play it, and you just see what you get. You're hitting on 5s. You have, I don't know, if you look at it at the start, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 3 hits expected. You don't know where they're going to go. If 2 of them go to Lorien, all of a sudden that's a really nice target. So it's a cool card. I think it's better to play early. Once you get later and you already have 1 Elven Stronghold conquered, the utility of it goes far down, and it goes back up if they muster up a bunch of elves. So it is a real danger to the Free People to muster too many elves, but it's still a Deadly Strife, so just don't forget that. Next thing, we're going to look at the strategy and character cards for Shadow. Like Free People, they get 2 new strategy cards and 3 new character cards. So starting with the strategy cards, Work of the Enemy is just a fun little card. It's a mini Dreadful Spells. You choose a region with a sovereign, roll 3 dice, inflict 1 hit for each roll of 5+ or 4+ if that sovereign is corrupted. This can be especially good against a corrupted sovereign, obviously. Sometimes, Erebor can still be a tough nut to crack even with a corrupted Dine, or Minas Tirith can be tough even with a corrupted Denethor. You just hit them with 1.5 hits, it helps you out. It's very straightforward. There's not that much to say about it. Palantir of Barad-dûr is much less straightforward. It's a really cool card. It's one of my favorite cards in this expansion. Once per turn, while this card is in play, the Shadow player can use a muster action die result as an event action die result instead. As you can imagine, this combos really well with Palantir of Orthanc. You can start to turn so many of your dice into vehicles to attack the Fellowship. It also combos well with the Chief. In the late game, especially when you're playing a corruption game, you will have a lot of excess muster dice, which you don't have a lot of use for. This gives you that use for them, to play corruption cards, or to do something else that's useful. Now, free people can get rid of it with a Will of the West, or any die result, and 1 Elven Ring, just like Palantir of Orthanc. But free people is going to be hard-pressed to feel like it's worth it doing that. That's the problem with this card. It's a really good card for Shadow, but it's not so game-changing like Palantir of Orthanc, so free people is going to feel inclined to leave it on the table for a while. So you can get a lot of value out of this. I really love this card. It's also a card on the table, so it blocks Wind from the West if you're playing with Lords. This can really change how you play the game of Shadow. Now, there is 2 combat cards associated with this, with these 2 strategy cards. You play them in a region with a Sovereign. If the Sovereign is corrupted, add 1 to all dice in your combat roll and leader reroll. Otherwise, add 1 to all dice on the combat roll and leader reroll of both armies. So, it's a +1/+1 if it's just a desperate battle if it is not a corrupted sovereign. But if it is a corrupted sovereign, that's even better for you. In practice, this just another desperate battle is a good thing to add to the deck. And you are certainly going to be attacking at least one stronghold with a sovereign, corrupted or otherwise, in it over the course of play. So, very good combat card. Honestly, I'm not sure if Work of the Enemy is better than a desperate battle. In a tight siege, maybe it would be. Let's look at the character cards now. So the West Has Failed is almost useless. It's a little sad. You initiate a corruption attempt on a sovereign in a region adjacent to or in the same region as a Nazgul without removing a die from the hunt box. That sounds great, and you can do it even if they have no unused action dice left. But in practice, how do you get a Nazgul adjacent or in the same region as a sovereign? You activate the nation by attacking it. Unless you're going to fly a Nazgul to, Druidane or Fold or something. Which, I don't know, maybe you could. I've never done that, but I haven't played this game so much that I'm going to claim authority over all things and kings. But just in practice, it's going to be very inconvenient for you to play this card, and all you do is get 1 corruption attempt, which is good. But if you're spending a die to move Nazgul and then playing this card, the value just isn't there. Now it does, kind of like with threats with Stormcrow, let you double dip. So that might be valuable to you depending on what your plan is. In general, though, you're going to play it as Battle is Vain. You can forfeit up to 5 points of Nazgul leadership to reduce the free people leadership by the same amount. This is basically a mini Dread and Despair. It gets rid of free people leadership, which can be quite good, especially if you're seeing, character cards. Unlike Foul Stench, free people has 5 leadership and you only have 2 Nazgul. This still reduces their leadership, so that's pretty nice. I think Dread and Despair is almost always better, but it is possible, if you... For example, if you're fighting an army with Aragorn and he's invading a stronghold, and it's a 4-2-2, right? It's just Aragorn leading. You could play this, cancel Aragorn, and cancel Anduril. At that point, though, you could just play Foul Stench. So I don't know. It's a perfectly fine, cyclable, playable character card. And then next up is the Palantir of Minas Tirith. You play it if you control Minas Tirith or Denethor Corrupted Ruler is in play. And this can often kind of define games. You can draw this card and it can change your plans for the game because the effect is really powerful. You look at the event cards in the hand of the Free People player and choose one of them. Place that card back into the matching deck and shuffle it, or discard that card if the Palantir of Barad-dûr is in play. So, Palantir of Barad-dûr combos with Palantir of Minas Tirith and Palantir of Orthanc, and just for fun, if you play this card with Palantir of Orthanc from play, you also get to draw an extra card. So the three Palantirs combo together. Shadow can... I have assembled Exodia before and managed to have all three cards in play at once, and that was really fun. But this is a very dangerous card. As Free People, you need to be aware of it, because getting Bilbo's Song or There Is Another Way discarded from your hand is really devastating. So if Shadow manages to corrupt Denethor, or Shadow manages to take Minas Tirith, and there's Palantir of Barad-dûr in play, as Free People, you have to strongly consider getting rid of this card as soon as possible. Because then you might lose the card for good. Now, if it's a sprint game, it might not matter that much. Putting it back in the deck versus discarding it might not be that big of a difference to you. But, yeah, this is a really cool card. It does require you to control Minas Tirith, or corrupt Denethor. Some games, that's not really the best path for you, and you shouldn't, like, blow up your whole military just to make this happen. Usually, though, you can make it happen. I mean, Shadow has so many armies near Minas Tirith that even against a strong Minas Tirith, you can probably eventually take it. The last card is You're Welcome and It's Doubtful. This is like the better version of Threats and Promises. While this card is in play, the Free People's player cannot remove corruption from a sovereign and can only awaken a sovereign if his nation is at war. And this can be removed with the Will of the West or character action if a non-corrupted sovereign and a companion are together in the same region. This can be pretty good. It's especially nice if you play it and then, like, you're attacking the north or something, so they can't get brands. Preventing them from awakening on activation can stymie Free People plans, so it's pretty good. And the combat effect is Servant of the Shadow. This was a combat effect in Loam. It lets you forfeit the leadership of one minion to reduce the number of Free People dice by every point of leadership forfeited. Overall, the Shadow deck didn't really get that much better. It kind of buffed a lot of the weaker cards and made the top effects more worth playing. And it gave you some really interesting options with Palantir of Barad-dûr and Palantir of Minas Tirith. Overall, though, I think the Free People deck gets stronger with this expansion, so that's something you should keep in mind. And Shadow's cards are like slightly... The worst cards are slightly better, but overall the average is slightly worse. So that's the cards. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you on the next one.